The internet didn't just pause. It shattered the second TAMAR Braxton finally said the words fans never thought she'd dare to speak. No punchline. No laugh to soften it. No glitter to distract from it. Just raw, unfiltered truth delivered with a stillness that felt more dangerous than screaming. Most of the time, I don't like my family. And in that moment, decades of Braxton unity cracked wide open. Because this wasn't a reality TV drama. This wasn't a shady soundbite clipped for ratings. This was a woman who has survived lupus, public breakdowns, industry betrayal, and a near-fatal health scare, admitting that the deepest wounds she carries didn't come from strangers. They came from her own sisters. The room went quiet. Social media went feral. Fans replayed the clip again and again, trying to understand how a family built on harmony could sound so fractured. TAMAR didn't stop there. Her voice didn't rise, it sharpened. She talked about silence that felt like abandonment. About being labeled too much when all she wanted was to be heard. About moments when her pain was turned into a joke, her tears into entertainment, and her struggles into a storyline everyone laughed through. And when she said, "If they weren't my family, they wouldn't be my friends," the meaning landed like a punch to the chest. Because families aren't supposed to feel like enemies. And whatever TAMAR is finally ready to reveal next, it threatens to rewrite the entire Braxton legacy forever. TAMAR didn't wake up one morning and decide to turn her back on her sisters. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't ego. This wasn't about cameras or contracts, or who got the bigger check. This was years of emotional debt finally coming due. And when she began speaking, it became painfully clear this story didn't start on reality TV. It started in childhood, in a house where love was real but approval was conditional, where music wasn't just passion, it was survival. Growing up a Braxton meant talent was expected, not celebrated. You sang because you were supposed to. You performed because that's what the family did. Mistakes weren't lessons, they were disappointments. TAMAR learned early that silence didn't protect you, volume did. If you weren't loud, you disappeared. And while the world now knows her as the outspoken one, the truth is she became that way because she felt invisible long before she was famous. Tony was already the star while TAMAR was still figuring out who she was allowed to be. Tours, record deals, industry respect followed Tony, and the family orbit naturally shifted around her success. TAMAR watched with pride, but also with a growing ache she never knew how to articulate. Every room felt like a comparison she didn't ask for. Every achievement felt like it had to be louder, bigger, more dramatic just to be noticed. And the sisters. They adapted in different ways. Some withdrew. Some smoothed things over. TAMAR exploded, because explosion at least meant someone had to look. When cameras entered their lives, everything intensified. What the audience saw as entertainment was, to TAMAR, emotional exposure without protection. Arguments didn't end when filming stopped. They followed her into hotel rooms, dressing rooms, cars parked in silence where she cried alone, because no one came looking. She remembers one night in particular, long before viewers ever saw a walk-off. A family argument broke out during a holiday. No producers. No scripts. Just pain. TAMAR poured her heart out, admitting she felt overlooked, dismissed, like the extra sister. Instead of reassurance, she says she felt mocked. Laughed at. And when she stormed out, no one followed. She sat in her car for an hour, tears drying into numbness, realizing something inside her had shifted. As her career finally began to rise, the dynamic didn't change the way she hoped it would. Success didn't bring security. It brought new resentment, new misunderstandings, and old labels that refused to die. Every time she tried to express hurt calmly, She says it was brushed off as her being dramatic. Every boundary she attempted to set was treated like an attack. And the more she tried to explain herself, the more she felt boxed into a role she never asked for, the difficult one. Then came the moment she says truly broke her trust. One night after filming, she accidentally overheard a conversation she was never meant to hear. Voices she knew too well. Sisters she loved. Talking about her. Not joking. Not venting lightly. Talking about how exhausting she was. How everything had to be about her. How sometimes they questioned her intentions. Tamar stood frozen, listening as pieces of herself were reduced to inconveniences. She didn't confront them. She didn't cry in front of them. She walked away quietly and let that knowledge settle somewhere deep, somewhere painful. From that moment on, every joke hit harder. Every eye roll felt intentional. Every comment about her energy felt loaded. Years later, when a snippet of backstage audio leaked online, fans went to war. Some defended Tamar. Others blamed her. What the public didn't know was that Tamar believed the leak wasn't accidental. Someone close had wanted that moment exposed. Wanted chaos. Wanted the narrative to spin. And once trust fractures like that, it doesn't heal easily. It splinters. The real breaking point didn't come from a screaming match. It came from laughter. During an off-camera family meeting meant to clear the air, Tamar finally spoke without yelling. She cried. She asked to be understood. And someone laughed. Not maliciously, maybe, but dismissively enough to confirm her deepest fear, that her pain wasn't taken seriously. She stood up calmly, wiped her face, and walked out without a word. The next day she sent a simple message saying she needed space. Real space. Not punishment. Survival. Now, years later, when Tamar sits in front of the camera and admits she doesn't like her family most of the time, it isn't hatred talking. It's grief. It's the exhaustion of loving people who make you feel small. It's the weight of always being the strong one, the loud one, the problem, because no one ever learned how to hear you when you whispered. And just when viewers thought they understood the pain, Tamar hinted there was still one moment she had never spoken about, one betrayal that explained everything. And when she said that, the room shifted, because whatever comes next isn't just about hurt feelings. It's about a truth the family has avoided for years, and once it's out, nothing will look the same again. What Tamar revealed next is the part that made even her supporters stop scrolling and just listen. Because this wasn't about petty arguments, or reality TV exaggeration anymore. This was about something she says changed how safe she felt inside her own family. A moment she had never spoken out loud, not to fans, not to interviewers, not even fully to herself until recently. She described a time when everything in her life was unraveling quietly. Her mental health was fragile, her marriage was strained, and the pressure to keep performing happiness for cameras and contracts was suffocating her. She says she was drowning, but smiling through it because that's what Braxtons do. Strong women. Tough skin. No excuses. And during that period, she reached out to her sisters not as a celebrity, not as a castmate, but as a sister asking for help. She claims what she needed wasn't advice, or jokes, or tough love. She needed protection. She needed someone to say, "You don't have to do this right now." Instead, she says she felt pushed to keep going. To keep filming. To keep showing up. To keep being good TV. And when she expressed fear about her mental state being used against her on camera, she alleges she was told, "This is what we all signed up for." That sentence never left her. Because in Tamar's mind, family was supposed to be the one place where contracts didn't matter. Where ratings didn't matter. Where your pain didn't become a storyline. But she began to feel like the line between family and production. Then she revealed something that sent shockwaves through her fan base. She claims there was a moment when her mental health struggles were discussed without her present. Not out of concern, but strategy. She says she later learned that conversations happened about how to handle her on camera, how to frame her reactions, and how to avoid making the family look bad if she went too far. Hearing that didn't just hurt her. It terrified her. Because suddenly, she wasn't just the emotional one. She was the liability. And from that point on, TAMAR says she stopped feeling safe being vulnerable around her sisters. Every tear felt like ammunition. Every breakdown felt like something that could be remembered later and thrown back at her. So she did what she always did. She got louder, sharper, defensive. Not because she wanted to fight, but because she felt cornered. Fans often accuse TAMAR of escalating situations. What they didn't see, she says, was how often she felt provoked quietly. A look here. A whisper there. A joke that landed too close to home. And when she reacted, the narrative was already written. TAMAR's crazy. TAMAR's drama. TAMAR's the problem. One incident in particular still haunts her. During a reunion-style sit-down, off-camera, but emotionally intense, TAMAR tried to explain how isolated she felt. She says she spoke carefully, calmly, choosing her words so no one could accuse her of being explosive. And when she finished, there was a pause. Then someone said, half joking, "Here we go again." TAMAR says that's when she realized something devastating. It didn't matter how she delivered her truth. The label had already been assigned to her. And once a family decides who you are, it's almost impossible to escape it. What made it worse was the public's response. Every time an argument aired, fans flooded her mentions with comments telling her to calm down, to be grateful, to stop embarrassing the family. Very few asked why she was hurting in the first place. TAMAR internalized that. She began to wonder if she really was the problem. If maybe her pain was too much. If maybe she should just disappear for everyone's peace. She admits now that those thoughts became dangerous. And here's where the betrayal cut deepest. During one of the darkest periods of her life, when she was genuinely scared of herself and what she might do, she says she felt emotionally abandoned. Not ignored completely, but managed. Checked on just enough to say they tried. Not held. Not grounded. Not truly seen. She didn't accuse her sisters of malice. She accused them of minimizing. Of choosing comfort over confrontation. Of avoiding the depth of her pain, because it was inconvenient, messy, and scary. And then she dropped the line that changed how many people viewed the entire Braxton dynamic. "It wasn't hard to love," TAMAR said quietly. "I was just hard to deal with when I stopped pretending." That sentence hit like a confession and an indictment all at once. But just when it seemed like TAMAR had said the most painful thing she ever could, she paused. Took a breath. Looked straight into the camera. And said there was one final incident she had never told anyone publicly. Not because it would make her sisters look bad, but because it would force her to relive a moment she still hadn't fully processed. She said it involved a decision made without her. A choice that affected her deeply. And when she found out what had been said behind her back, it confirmed her worst fear. That the people she trusted most believed they knew what was best for her better than she did. The room went silent. TAMAR swallowed hard. And then she said, "That's when I stopped fighting to be understood and started fighting to survive." She didn't explain the incident yet. She just promised that when she did, people would finally understand why distance became necessary. Why love from afar felt safer than closeness filled with judgment. And why reconciliation, while possible, would never be simple. And with that, the internet leaned forward collectively, because whatever that final truth is, TAMAR has made it clear it's the key to everything. By the time TAMAR reached the final part of her truth, the energy around her shifted completely. This wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't even grief. It was clarity. The kind that only comes after you've replayed the same memories 1,000 times, and finally stopped trying to soften them. She revealed that the incident she'd been holding back wasn't explosive on the surface. No screaming. No cameras. No dramatic walkout. That's what made it hurt more. It was quiet. Surgical. And in her words, quiet betrayals are the ones that live the longest. TAMAR explained that at one point, she had made a very deliberate choice to step back from family projects. Not to punish anyone. Not to disappear. But to heal. She says she communicated this clearly. She told her sisters she needed time where she wasn't expected to perform, explain, or defend herself. Time where she could rebuild her mental and emotional foundation without being analyzed. She thought the message landed. What she didn't know was that while she was trying to find peace, conversations were still happening without her. Decisions were still being made in rooms she wasn't in. Narratives were still being shaped. And when she finally found out, it felt like the ground dropped beneath her. She learned, through someone she trusted outside the family, that her absence had been framed as instability. Not rest. Not boundaries. Instability. She says she was painted as unreliable, unpredictable, someone who couldn't be counted on. Not maliciously, not loudly, but casually, which somehow hurt more. Because that meant her choice to heal had been turned into a liability. TAMAR admitted that hearing this shattered something in her permanently. You don't recover easily from realizing your healing journey was discussed like a risk assessment, she said. In that moment, she understood that no matter how much love existed, the family system had a role for her, and stepping outside of it made people uncomfortable. That's when she stopped over-explaining. She stopped trying to prove she wasn't difficult. She stopped chasing validation from people who already decided who she was. And most painfully, she stopped expecting her sisters to understand her pain in the way she needed. Not because they are cruel, but because they are human, shaped by the same environment that shaped her, an environment where strength was praised and vulnerability was inconvenient. TAMAR made it clear she doesn't see herself as the victim and her sisters as villains. She sees a family that never learned how to hold space for the loudest pain without trying to quiet it. A family that survived by pushing forward, even when someone was falling behind emotionally. She admitted she played a role in the chaos. That her reactions weren't always healthy. That she hurt people, too. But she also refused to accept that accountability should only flow one way. I can own my behavior, she said, without accepting blame for everyone else's discomfort. That line alone ignited another wave online. What truly stunned people, though, was what came next. TAMAR said she still loves her sisters deeply. That hasn't changed. What has changed is access. She no longer believes closeness means safety. She believes boundaries are the most loving thing she can offer herself and them. She explained that distance doesn't mean bitterness. It means self-respect. It means not reopening wounds just to prove you're healed. It means loving people without surrendering your peace. And then she addressed the question everyone had been asking since the headline dropped: will there ever be a full reconciliation? TAMAR paused for a long time before answering. She said reconciliation isn't impossible, but it can't be performative. It can't be rushed for appearances. And it can't require her to shrink, soften, or silence herself to keep the peace. If healing means I have to go back to being the version of me that was acceptable, but miserable, she said, then that's not healing. The silence after that was deafening. In the final moments, Tamar looked directly, and with that, the story didn't feel like gossip anymore. It felt like the end of a long internal war, and the beginning of a boundary the world would have to respect, whether it liked it or not. If you've made it this far, then you already know this wasn't just another celebrity headline. This was years of silence cracking open in real time. This was a woman finally choosing herself after being labeled, misread, and reduced to a storyline for far too long. And the truth is, this conversation does not end here. What Tamar revealed is going to keep echoing, because it forces people to ask uncomfortable questions about family, loyalty, boundaries, and who gets blamed when pain gets loud. So now I need you to do 3 things, and I'm serious about this. First, hit that like button. Not just for the algorithm, but because stories like this only keep getting told when people show they're paying attention. Silence is how these truths get buried again. Second, subscribe right now. Because if Tamar chooses to reveal more, and everything about this says she hasn't said her final word, you do not want to hear it secondhand, twisted, or watered down. You want it broken down in real time, with context, receipts, and clarity. And finally, drop a comment. I want to know where you stand. Do you think Tamar was misunderstood all along? Do you believe distance was the only way she could survive? Or do you think family loyalty should outweigh personal pain? Your perspective matters more than you think, and this comment section is where the real conversation happens. Because this isn't just about Tamar Braxton. It's about anyone who's ever been told they were too much, when they were really just hurting. And trust me, this story isn't done unfolding. Stay locked in.